When my father passed away, the only place that gave me comfort was the house he left behind. It wasn't just brick and walls. It was filled with memories of childhood laughter, family dinners, and the echo of his voice guiding me through life. That home was the anchor I held on to while grieving. But soon after the funeral, I began to notice the subtle changes. My stepmother and her children, who had never been close to me, suddenly began acting like the house was theirs alone. At first, I told myself it was grief making everyone behave strangely. Then one day, I came home to find my father's photographs missing from the living room. In their place were new decorations, none of which reminded me of him. When I asked about it, my stepmother simply said, "We thought it was time for a fresh start." Her words stung like a slap. A fresh start for who? Certainly not for me, the only biological child of the man who had built that house. Still, I held my tongue, believing respect would smooth things over. But things only escalated. My bedroom, the same one I had since childhood, was suddenly being referred to as the guest room. I overheard her telling relatives, "Oh, that's just temporary. Soon we'll fix it up for my son." My father's study, the place where he had written his notes, balanced the family accounts, and kept his old books, was emptied out overnight. His shelves of journals were stuffed into boxes in the garage, left to collect dust. I tried to protest. I reminded them that the will clearly stated the house was to remain in my name. But every time I spoke up, I was met with dismissive laughter. "Don't be dramatic," they'd say. "We all live here now. It's not just yours." Their words cut deeper each time. Slowly, I felt myself being erased, not just from the rooms, but from the very history of my father's life. It was as though they were trying to rewrite everything, leaving me out of the story entirely. One evening, I walked into the dining room to find my father's chair replaced. His seat, the one he always occupied at dinner, was gone, as though he had never existed. It was old, my stepmother explained. But to me, it felt deliberate. The final straw came when I overheard her whispering to her sister on the phone. "Once everything is in our control, she won't matter anymore. We'll make sure she leaves." My blood went cold. They weren't just trying to change the house, they were planning to erase me from it completely. For a while, I considered packing my bags and leaving. But then I thought about my father, about his sacrifices, his love, and the way he had always told me, "This house will always be your safe place." I couldn't let them destroy that. So I decided to fight back, not with shouting or bitterness, but with facts and determination. I gathered the will, the property documents, and every legal paper I could find. If they wanted to erase me, they would have to erase the law first. The next time they cornered me about moving out, I placed the documents on the table. My stepmother's smile faltered when she saw my father's handwriting on the will. "The house belongs solely to my daughter," it read. Clear as day. Her children tried to argue, claiming we're family too, but their voices grew smaller with each line I read aloud. For the first time, the silence in the room belonged to them, not me. In that silence, I felt my father's presence beside me. He hadn't left me defenseless. He had made sure I would always have a place, even if others tried to steal it. From that day forward, things changed. They still lived there for a while, but the balance shifted. Every time they looked at me, they were reminded that the house wasn't theirs to control. It was mine. Eventually, my stepmother and her children moved out. They said the house didn't feel like home anymore. The truth was, they couldn't stand living in a place where their lies had been exposed. When the house was quiet again, I walked from room to room, touching the walls, feeling the history they held. My father's memory had been bruised, but it hadn't been erased. I put his photographs back where they belonged. I restored his study, returning the books to their shelves. I made the house whole again, not just for me, but for him. And in doing so, I reclaimed myself. Because what they didn't understand was that the house wasn't just about property. It was about identity, roots, and love. Things that couldn't be stolen by greedy hands. Even now, years later, I still live in that home. Friends ask why I never sold it or moved away. I always smile and say, because it's more than a house. It's proof I can't be erased. Sometimes I sit in my father's chair, the one I rescued from the attic. I close my eyes, and I swear I can still hear his voice telling me he's proud. That I stood my ground. That I honored his legacy. The attempt to erase me only made me stronger. It taught me that silence can be deadly, but truth, once spoken, cannot be silenced. They thought they could erase me from my own home. Instead, they erased themselves from my life. And I've never looked back. Because this home is mine. Always was. Always will be. And in every corner of it, my father still lives.